On February 18 at 9:42 p.m., Prince Andrew steps onto the BAFTA red carpet, for years after losing royal duties. Within 11 minutes, his name trends in 23 countries. 2 legal teams activate before midnight. That timing changes everything. By 10:03 p.m., crisis advisors circulate a 3-page briefing. Specific clauses highlighted. 3 words circled in red: commercial appearance risk. The optics are explosive. Private counsel begins documenting reactions in real time, but that's not even the worst part. By 10:03 p.m., crisis advisors circulate a 3-page briefing. Specific clauses highlighted. 3 words circled in red: commercial appearance risk. The optics are explosive. Private counsel begins documenting reactions in real time, but that's not even the worst part. Publicly, it looks like a simple appearance. Cameras. Smiles. Polite applause. But internally, contracts intersect with settlement terms signed in 2022. Everyone assumes closure. Yet a single clause about future representation complicates everything. So what is actually triggered here? Here's the contradiction: he holds no official role, yet security detail mirrors working royals. Funding lines blur. Private or public expense? That distinction matters under parliamentary scrutiny. 2 departments quietly request clarification before dawn. And nobody expected that response. Stop. Rewind that. 2 departments move before sunrise. That signals something larger than optics. By the end of this, you'll understand which legal domino falls first, and why one overlooked sentence from 2019 suddenly resurfaces tonight. March 2019. The interview that alters everything. Since then, every public move carries calculated exposure. Insurance policies adjust. Indemnity protections narrow. Appearances are no longer symbolic, they are measurable risk events. And BAFTA becomes the latest test case. Behind palace walls, lawyers analyze precedent. When a non-working royal attends a globally televised event, liability shifts subtly. Not dramatic. Subtle. And subtle is where lawsuits are born. One precedent from 1996 resurfaces in discussion. The 2022 settlement contains confidentiality language with razor precision. It does not forbid public life. It restricts certain representations. The difference is microscopic. But on a red carpet watched by 2.7 million viewers, microscopic becomes massive. And here's the number that shifts everything: £12 million. That's the estimated reputational cost analysts attach to renewed controversy in just 72 hours. Markets don't move, but brand affiliations do. Quietly. And that's when sponsors start watching. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, US attorneys monitor commentary threads line by line. Not because of a new case, but because statements made now can be cited later. Words spoken casually tonight echo in courtrooms years from now. Social media spikes at 12:14 a.m. 38,000 posts in under an hour. Some supportive. Many not. Legal exposure doesn't depend on volume, it depends on interpretation. And interpretation is unpredictable once momentum builds. There's another layer. Royal property use. If any footage features crown-adjacent estates in promotional edits, licensing questions emerge. Minor detail? Not at all. That detail alone could trigger internal review next week. You're probably thinking this is about public opinion. It isn't. It's about exposure stacking: appearance plus archive plus commentary equals cumulative risk. And cumulative risk is what insurers dread most. Pause. Because here's the twist insiders whisper: the appearance itself may be legally safe. It's the reaction that creates vulnerability. One viral clip out of context can redefine narrative overnight. And one clip is already circulating. Medium white star viral moment: a single line from a 2019 transcript resurfaces beside a 2024 red carpet smile. Side by side. The contrast is jarring. Not illegal. Not new. But unforgettable. And that juxtaposition reframes everything in 8 seconds. Internally, advisors categorize outcomes into 3 tracks: fade out, formal response, or strategic silence. Each path carries different legal exposure windows: 24 hours, 7 days, 30 days. The clock is already ticking on one of them. Another complication emerges: charitable affiliations. If associated organizations face backlash, trustees must evaluate alignment. It's procedural, cold, unemotional. But decisions like that ripple fast across governance boards. By 9:08 a.m. the next morning, 3 commentators float the phrase constitutional optics. That phrase matters because it shifts debate from scandal to structure. And structure invites lawmakers into the conversation. Right now, as of today, no formal action exists, only analysis, monitoring, and contingency drafting. The appearance may fade quietly. Or it may redefine boundaries for non-working royals forever. And honestly, most people in his position would have taken that walk. At 10:32 a.m., a clarification draft circulates, 12 sentences, 1 adjective doing all the damage. It's meant to cool the mood. Instead, legal chatter latches on instantly, and the small problem becomes a formal risk. By 11:18 a.m., advisors swap that adjective for private capacity. 3 edits later, the tone looks safer. But the revision implies the first version was unsafe. The fix becomes proof of panic, and the spiral tightens. At 12:01 p.m., a screenshot of the draft hits an inbox it never should reach. 1 forward turns into 5. Suddenly, the bigger story isn't the carpet, it's the leak inside the machine, and control starts slipping. At 12:07 p.m., distribution lists get locked down. Meeting invites shrink. Access gets need to know. It looks like discipline, but it reads like fear. And fear is a signal everyone knows how to interpret. Pattern interrupt: here's the number that detonates trust, £185,000. At 1:46 p.m., an emergency advisory invoice lands for 72 hours of monitoring. It's routine in crises. But once that figure leaks, the invoice becomes the headline. By 3:02 p.m., the fee triggers talk of transparency. Not because it's the biggest number, because it's the cleanest symbol. One line item becomes a moral argument, and moral arguments spread faster than facts. At 5:19 p.m., advisors float a softer narrative: cultural engagement only. It sounds harmless. Then archived clips collide with that framing, and the contrast lights a new fire. The story mutates in real time. At 6:12 p.m., a charity trustee sends a private memo requesting clarity on association. It's procedural. Cold. But procedure is how exits begin. And once exits begin, they don't stay private for long. By 9:08 p.m., only 1 sentence from that memo leaks, just enough to sting, not enough to explain. Fragments outrun context every time. And now the leak count is 2, which means a pattern is forming. At 9:03 p.m., underwriters quietly re-rate exposure. One model bumps projected premiums by 14%. 14% is not outrage, it's institutional doubt. And doubt is the first domino insurers drop. At 11:22 p.m., advisors choose strategic silence. No interviews. No follow-ups. Silence feels safe. But silence invites substitute stories, and substitute stories are written by the loudest voices, not the closest ones. Open loop, 72 hours. That's the window before a narrative hardens. By 1:10 a.m., analysts say we're halfway there. The clock isn't ticking on a person now, it's ticking on the institution's credibility. At 7:48 a.m., a former advisor speaks, neutral, measured, almost bored. That tone is deadly, because it makes the controversy sound normal. Once normal enters the chat, escalation becomes policy talk. By 10:05 a.m., legal scholars frame it as a public trust optics. It sounds academic, but it's a trigger phrase, because it shifts the issue from scandal to structure. And structure is where reforms start. At 12:44 p.m., contingency draft number for circulates, prepared but unsigned. Drafting signals readiness. Not signing signals hesitation. And hesitation becomes its own story when everyone senses a decision coming. Pattern interrupt, hard cut to the accountants. At 2:03 p.m., funding questions hit a spreadsheet, private costs versus public perception. The numbers don't scream. They whisper. And whispers are what auditors follow. At 4:18 p.m., lawmakers start saying boundary setting out loud. Not accusations, boundaries. That language matters because it implies a future line in the sand. And once a line is proposed, someone always tests it. Open loop, who keeps leaking? At 6:57 p.m., a third screenshot appears, this time from inside the response team itself. That means containment is failing at the center, not the edges, and the cover-up starts to show seams. At 8:22 p.m., overseas commentary reframes the whole thing as a resilience test. That reframing travels globally, and global framing changes legal risk, because reputational harm becomes measurable across borders. 48 hours after the 9:42 p.m. carpet walk, it stops being about attendance and becomes about rules, legal, constitutional, financial. The small problem turns structural. And structural stories don't end quietly, they demand a next move. February 20th, 11:03 a.m. An unsigned email lands in a private inbox marked urgent, governance review. He sees the subject line. His thumb hovers. The room is quiet except for the clock ticking. Then he opens it. The first paragraph is clinical. No emotion. Immediate reassessment of affiliation status. He reads it once. Then again. His hand freezes mid-scroll. Outside, cameras still wait. Inside, everything shifts by a single sentence. The second line hits harder, effective pending formal review. Pending. Not final. But powerful enough. He lowers the phone. Doesn't speak. Doesn't move. For 6 full seconds, the only sound is his breath. At 11:09 a.m., a private aide reads the same email across the corridor. Her eyes widen. She forwards it to 2 names marked priority. That's the moment the immediate circle knows, and the circle is smaller than people think. By 11:14 a.m., a screenshot leaves that circle. No context. Just the phrase affiliation status. It hits a group chat. Then another. 5 minutes later, it's on a public feed. And the reaction wave begins. 14 million views in 36 hours. By 1:32 p.m., headlines frame it as governance distancing. That wording spreads faster than the original memo. Commentators quote it verbatim. Screenshots stack. The phrase becomes the story, and the story becomes momentum. Pattern interrupt. Meanwhile, inside the residence, phones stop ringing. Calls go unanswered. One scheduled appearance disappears from a public calendar at 3:05 p.m. That deletion is subtle. But online, nothing subtle stays hidden. At 6:48 p.m., a prepared response draft sits unsigned, again. Silence stretches past sunset. No denial. No confirmation. The absence of words becomes louder than any statement, and speculation fills the vacuum instantly. 48 hours ago, it was a red carpet walk at 9:42 p.m. Now it's a governance review, 14 million views, and a vanished appearance. The leaks aren't traced. The draft isn't signed. And the next move hasn't been made.